Hello everyone, today I'd like to talk to you about Brazilian knives. It's an often neglected topic because even in Brazil, outside of a very small group of people who are knife enthusiasts, it's a topic that don't often come in discussions. People don't really talk much about them, but Brazil being a very big country actually has many different knife making traditions, and I'd like to talk about at least two of them here. Well, the first knife I want to show you is actually a machete. The machete is a very, very common work tool in Brazil and South America in general. This is a Tramontina, nothing special about it. You can find it anywhere, very cheap. And though it's true, the machete is a very important weapon in South America and Brazil alike, it's not the knife I want to talk about today. So the first knife I want to talk to you about is what we call Faca de Ponta, or it's a pointed knife. It also, we can see a similar name in Spanish, the Cuchillo de Punta. It's actually a fighting dagger, fighting knife, and you're going to see in a minute. There you go. This is a northeastern Faca de Ponta. The pointed knife was a very popular type of weapon in Brazil. You can see many regional variants, and at least from the southeastern region of Brazil, they follow very closely their Mediterranean counterparts. They look very much like Corsican knives. But the northeastern region actually has a very distinctive kind of knife shape. This is the one I own here. This is a modern reproduction made by a local knife maker, according to historical examples. So you can see it has a very decorated handle. It's brass and then bullhorn, the black material here. These are rings too. And the very distinctive characteristic of northeastern knives is this rounded profile, a narrowing here near the pommel, and then this globular pommel. It's a very, very common design. You can recognize one of these, a knife has been made in the northeast of Brazil from these characteristics alone. I think the blade of this one is actually very interesting too. You can see it has a very, very gentle tapering here near the point, starts around right here. Well, there are different variations of the Faca de Ponta in the northeast of Brazil. Some of them are actually smaller than this. You could only hold it with like 2 or 3 fingers, perhaps as a joke or perhaps something very, very concealable. Others are very, very large. Some have blades that are made them effectively small swords with over 70 centimeters of blade. This is a 45 centimeter knife, its entire length. It's a very comfortable handle. You can feel the blade if you thumb it, so you keep the edge aligned. It's a very nimble weapon. And as you can see, the decorated handle actually made it for a status symbol also. So richer people would actually have handles made of silver and gold and different precious metals. So this is a Faca de Ponta from the northeastern region of Brazil. So the next knife I would like to talk about is perhaps a more utilitarian knife. It's kind of like a Brazilian Bowie knife, not because of its shape, as you're going to see in a minute, but because of its overall popularity and use throughout Brazil. This is a Sorocaban knife. Its name comes from the city or the little town where it used to be made. It's called Sorocaba. And what is striking, what makes this knife a very distinctive type is the handle construction and handle shape. You can see the handle here has an interesting profile. It chokes here near the pommel. The pommel usually has this disc decoration. Handle is made of bullhorn, also very typical. This is actually an antique, so it has some aging marks. The previous owner actually did a restoration job that actually erased some of its marks. You can see here it has something of a maker's mark here, which I'm trying to identify. And well, another thing that is very interesting about this knife is its construction method. As you can see here, you can see this very interesting rounded shape here. This is actually a rivet. You can perhaps just about see the outline of another rivet here. There's supposed to be another one here that you can only see very close. They go all the way through. There you go, 1, 2, 3. And the interesting thing about these knives is that the handle and the blade are two different parts. So this is the handle. And then you can see here how the blade is inserted into the knife. And then the rivets are forge welded and secure both things in place. This is perhaps 100 years old. Could be late 19th century, but just going to play it safe and say it's from the 1920s. So this is the Sorocaban knife. It was a very popular design. You actually had very long blades too, that were sword size, kind of like a Napoleonic BK. So why were they built like this? Well, Brazil was actually a very poor country back in the day. And even though we had a smelter and iron mine back in the 19th century, still most good blades were actually imported. So people would repurpose, or they would recycle broken blades from military swords or from English-made machetes. And perhaps this is what gives its distinctive look. And also what explains this construction method, which is very interesting. It's a very strong blade. This thing will take a beating. It's not as fragile as it may seem at first, but it is the way they were made. Some Faca de Pontas were actually also made in the same way. This one not so. This one wasn't, but there are examples that are made with the same construction technique. Well, these are some of the knives I would like to show you today, and I hope you enjoyed this and you found it interesting. Cheers.